I've had people try to kill me in my life and whatever, and other things. And when you speak to a human, you get a human back. So I asked her to be my business partner. She told me to fuck off. She just doesn't quit. She's one of the most resilient, determined people I've ever worked with. And I've trained with like people from the SAS.
People can teach you business till they're blue in the face, but you will always fail that business if you fail to sort yourself out.
There's people with way more privilege than me out there who think that doing a charity fun run is their bit. Like, come on, like, I left home at 15.
Had I had someone like you to support me or mentor me in certain decisions, I probably would have been a lot further than I am today.
I've seen him blow young people's minds after a 5-minute conversation, and you see their eyes like widen, and he won't say it because he's humble, but he does it like every day to so many people, and he's an incredible man to work with.
The teacher always appears when the student's ready.
Perfect.
Thank you in advance for listening, because it means that my confidence grows. Thank you for subscribing, because it means that I get to share more. And thank you for commenting, because it means that I get to listen to you. And thank you in advance for sharing, because that's confirmation that we inspired you to inspire others. I pray that you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed creating it.
This is the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat. And right now I'm here with not one, but two amazing powerhouses. They're business partners from two very different generations. I want to introduce you to Christoff Taylor and Yasmin Kyle.
Hello.
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 Thank you for coming in today. Relax, chill. I want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to come down here today to our studios. I want you both to introduce yourselves individually, who you are individually. One of you take the lead in talking about exactly what YCUK is.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Right, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, that's good.
Take the lead on what we are.
Calm.
Okay, so I'm Yasmin. I'm a visual artist and co-founder of YCUK alongside Chris.
Okay, I'm Christoff Taylor, social and media entrepreneur, and co-founder of YCUK with Yasmin. What is YCUK? I think we're still kind of working that out. YCUK is, I guess, an autonomous solution to a lot of problems that we encountered, and I encountered working with young people. On its fundamental level, it is a creative agency built by and for young people, for the benefit of all people. I'll tag you off the back of that.
I'd say, I feel like you've actually summarised what we do very well, because we do a lot of different things. I think our main mission is to disruptively make creativity as accessible as possible to young people. The way we operate isn't conventional. In fact, we defy every statistic that is out there in the sector. And all throughout that kind of disruptive guerrilla mentality, there's a real like humanist culture that aims to put young people first and give them access to opportunity and access to mentality to be successful.
On a technical level, the company has 4 pillars of service. We have our youth development service, which is free training on subjects like race, gender, equality, how to write an invoice, how to do an interview, like a whole range of stuff. All our commercial services are available to be white labeled by any young person. So our briefing forms, our project management software, that's also underpinned by free access to every professional software you can need as a creative. The same cameras we use when we shoot for Palm Angels or Sleep Breaks are available for young people to use for free, so there is no barrier to pursuing your own excellence. The same as when we have a space, there's free food, free welfare, free sanitary products. We try and anticipate these barriers and remove them. The second pillar is the creative agency, which is, I guess, at the moment is how we monetize and support the service, because we're completely unfunded. The third element we ran on the South Bank. I'll tag you back in here.
Yeah, we called it a cultural activation space, the South Bank project. I mean, in summary, was like 6 months empty, 650 square meter office space in the heart of the South Bank. We got access to an opportunity to build whatever we wanted within that space, and we built co-working areas, creative studios, content studios. We had a whole cupboard full of Nerf guns. We had the well-being space. We had a chill-out zone with bean bags and a PS4. Like, everything that a young person or any we had all types of people in there. Community leaders, agile consultancy firms, 4-year-olds who were partaking in a reading like workshop.
Leica ambassadors, some of the best photographers in Britain were coming in and co-working with us. So we ran that space, and when we built it, it was the biggest creative space for young people in Britain. All built entirely by young people, for young people. There was not a single penny of funding there. We did it completely independently of any support.
And that kind of space, we view it as a toolkit or an ecosystem for creative and like cultural organisations to thrive. So when we talk about cultural activation, it's not just having one specific program for one type of person. It's like having the ecosystem to allow culture to grow and thrive in a sustainable environment. The fourth pillar is something we're kind of working towards. It's called value sharing, where any kind of unique approach we have to the way that we run our business, some of the values, some of the missions, we don't want to just keep that as our thing. We believe that other organisations can do better and they can treat their staff better too and empower more people, and we like to get to a place where we're going in and consulting with other businesses and sharing how we do what we do so that they can do it too in their own way.
That's perfect. And I think what's particularly nice about that is it is helping people. We help people self-manifest, and then we help them monetize the confidence they have in their identity. So, okay, you run a bank and you want to make it accessible. Don't book a bunch of high-end consultancies that have done focus groups. Talk to the people that are not getting into your service and understand why, and then have a system and a culture that allows that feedback to be accessible, you know, and that's a big part of it. So Yasmin wrote all our HR policies with some support. I have to shout out Fleur, she also supported you. She's a big HR director in the city. But we couldn't find policies progressive enough for the kind of issues we didn't want to occur in our company. So we had to write our own. Like, we couldn't find an anti-sexualization policy. We could find sexual harassment, but like before that, there was no one tackling that. There may be, someone may be watching this and shouting at it, but we couldn't find it. So we wrote our own. We solve our own problems. Well, Yasmin did, and I read it and said, that's very good. You know?
So,
Yeah, that was a lot.
So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. That's it.
It's a big
it was a lot, but I'm blown away. Like, so Yasmin, this is the first time I'm meeting you. Yeah. I'm blown away. Like, Chris has already said that you are extremely articulate and you are well beyond your years, right? But I'm blown away by your articulation. Like, legitimately, I'm very proud. Just in that one bloody sentence.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
it was. I'm like, yes, honey, you are the goddamn CEO. Like, so what I want you to do, and I'm just gonna say this, right?
Yeah.
But something that I definitely want you to do, the next time you introduce yourself as an entrepreneur, because that is who you are, right? You are an entrepreneur, and I just need you to hone that in and just be like, that's my identity, because there's many people that can sit in a role and listen to somebody else and kind of do what they've been told, right? Especially and I'm not even going to talk about your age much, because if I'm 100% honest with you, for me, I started business at 17, 18 years old. So the way you articulate yourself, it just reminds me of myself, because I was very sure of what problems I was solving in the world and why I was kind of placed into the world at a young age and at the age that you are at the moment. So you're 21 right now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, you ain't that young. You ain't that young. But there are a number of young people under the age of 25 that still haven't been able to find their voice and articulate themselves as clearly as you have, and to know exactly what problem you're solving with the business that you are running, right? So yeah, I just wanted to say, bitch. Okay. But YCUK basically is just, it's a business of my heart. Like, what you guys do is something that is something that I'm really attached to, and something that I'm also on a mission to be able to support and essentially just change the way that creative individuals live their life. Because at the end of the day, it could go years and years and years before a creative person really understands that they can actually make money from their creativity, and they don't have to do that shitty job in the do you know what I mean, like packing shelves. You don't have to do that to sustain yourself. You can actually sustain yourself as a creative entrepreneur, or even as a creative just as a creative person in any job that you do, right? You can make money from it. And what YCUK does is it hones those skills from a young age, inside and out. And that's one thing that I always kind of say, is that with business, so I said this on another podcast a couple of weeks ago, you never have business problems, you only have personal problems feeding into your business. So until you sort out yourself, right, no matter how much business somebody teaches you, you could be 16, 17, 18, 19, 50 odd years old. People can teach you business till they're blue in the face. But you will always fail that business if you fail to sort yourself out, right? And or you will always feel like you're failing a business until you sort yourself out, or you sort out, there could be anything going on in your own life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, what you guys do is something that I'm like, I support massively, absolutely massively. So I want to talk a bit about the fact that you're 21 years old. You are 38 years old. Yeah. Just to put it out there, just so everybody knows. But I want to show the difference in generation, the difference in age, being able to come together and be co-founders and partners in such a mission. Like, how did that come about?
That's quite interesting, actually. So at the time, so I met Yasmin. She was brought to the youth service by someone else that I was running. I was running like a studio creative program in New Park at the time, and Yas came in, and the kind of articulate, slightly more extrovert young lady you see here was not like that the first time I spoke to her. She kind of like panicked and grunted back at me. It didn't say nothing. But from very early on, I was like very impressed with her curiosity and intelligence and her ability to navigate a space like New Park, which was not an easy centre to come into. Then we kind of bonded over that art project you did, right?
Yeah, at my college I was doing art projects around masculinity, where I was interviewing lots of different types of males, like young and old, around their experiences of masculinity, and wanted to make something with someone else in my class about kind of the responses and all that kind of stuff, because it's not an experience I understand. Obviously I'm a woman, and that was probably the first conversation I'd had with Chris one-on-one, and I pulled him aside, I asked him these questions, and I'd never heard a male, particularly an older male, like speak to me around those issues in the way that he did. And it just, I think it's quite an unconventional relationship, like a younger woman and an older man, but from very early on I felt instantly like at ease. I didn't feel any type of any type of weirdness, do you know what I mean, which you can get. And to be so comfortable so early on, and to hear him articulate himself around issues that I had like connection with in some sort of way, like, was really comforting. And he was just so open, and not a lot of adults I'd met were like just themselves, and they were open, and they would just speak to you like an actual human and not like a young person, you know. So it was like that kind of shift in dynamic, and a kind of collective of us formed around you.
So that youth service ended up being closed.
Yeah.
Funding cuts, all the very typical bad manager, all the typical things that can destroy an integral. It'd been like running 35 years continuously, right? It was an absolute beacon in that community. Back open now, doing great work. But in that period, so when I left, I started like lending my young people my cameras so they could do their own work. So even sometimes my work camera. So at the time I'm shooting for like Jimmy Choo, Apple, and I can't lie, I'm nervous because they take that camera. I'm not paying my bills. You know, I'm living on this. I even lent, like, one of my prized possessions was a Zeiss lens. These are like something you wait your whole career to get hold of. I lent it to a 16-year-old, and she took a photo that I think is worthy of the cover of Vogue, you know. And that's always been like my ethos. I'm willing to trust, I'm willing to take risk. But that collective grew, and it kind of got to the point where I remember one Saturday there was a couple of guys doing decision-making exercises around life planning in my living room. There was like, where I lived, there was grounds, so there was like loads of people doing like creative workshops in the grounds. There was two young men who I'm still friends with to this day, discussing theology with me in the kitchen. It was like, this needs to become a service, because the young people were demanding it. This wasn't like I was not actively pursuing this. These were young people who would then bring more young people and more young people, and the collective grew. So fast forwards, we kind of founded. Initially I was the only company director, because it's not really ethical to ask a 17-year-old, do you want to be a company director with all that accountability? To be honest, it's hard to give someone an informed choice, because especially if you're like the kind of charismatic media guy, they'll probably just say yes.
Yeah.
Right, I have to be honest, I wanted to make sure it was the right people who you succeed with is really important. And what I particularly, one of my favourite attributes about Yasmin as a leader is how reluctant she is as a leader, but how she steps up regardless. So in the early days when she was like an introvert, I would say we were doing a project about gender or something that I knew she had like a strong opinion on, I would like deliberately like provoke her. Do you know what I mean? I'd say something wrong and I'd see her go, you know, and then all of a sudden she'd like burst out of her chair and go, nah, and I'd be, yes, you're running the girls program now, you know. And that's how it sort of worked. So yeah, that was sort of the early days. And then 2 years ago I asked her to be my business partner, over 2 years ago actually, but she said yes 2 years ago.
No, last year.
Was it?
Last January
okay.
1st.
So I was asking her for a while before. Can I swear on this podcast?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. So I asked her to be my business partner. She told me to fuck off. I'll be completely honest. There were a raft of other people in the industry trying to get me into business, and some of these were some quite big deals. And I saw something in Yasmin. I was like, no, this is an opportunity to really work with someone who has decent values and has a resilience I've not really seen before, a real quiet strength that's rare. It's a really rare commodity to meet someone who doesn't like something but is compelled to act. You know, that's a very important attribute in entrepreneurialism, but also in the people you want around you as you grow in your career too. So she eventually stopped telling me to fuck off. The next drive I got was, I ain't saying nothing. She stormed out the room. Like, come on. Like,
I didn't know what it meant. Like, I didn't really, because I'm not technically, I mean, neither of us are technically trained. Most entrepreneurs aren't technically trained in business. You just got to figure it out, like, as you go. But I really I didn't know what it meant for me to be put on company's house. So I didn't want to do it until I went away and made up my own mind and understood what it meant. And then when I agreed to do it, we just kind of came out a challenging period and built a table together. It was the first time I'd like sawn some wood and did all the filing and that kind of thing. He really taught me a lot of stuff, and you have to pay £1 to go on Company's House. So when I decided I was going to do it, I like went to the office on the weekend, just me and these tools, and I built a little box with a little £1 coin hole in it, and I painted it yellow because he wears a lot of yellow, and gave him the box with the £1 coin in it, because it was like a real like symbol of, you've given me all these skills and I've given me an opportunity to come on board on a level that I didn't really see myself operating at. And then I gave him the box, and I think you still have that box. And what did finance was like, could have made the edges straight.
Yeah, my dad cussed it out because the top was wonky. He says this, my dad is the kind of guy, right? We're like polar opposite people. Like, couldn't be more opposite. He gets a bit of wood and goes like this, then he walks across the room, and then he cuts it like that, and he's criticising her woodwork. You know, like, we did not have straight shelves in our house. That'll be real. He's a doer, though. I'll give him that. He's a doer.
Yeah.
He's a doer. Yeah.
And so is Yasmin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I decide, it might take me a while to decide, but once I do, I'll commit for sure.
That's a wonderful story, to be fair, because it shows your true sentiment, the sentimental value that you hold, and being able to realise what Chris has taught you.
Yeah.
That must give you a good sense of you've not accomplished something, but you've been able to get through to a young person.
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had an incredibly privileged career working with young people. I was always, sometimes I was kind of like compared to like a Deadpool kind of hero. I was like a good youth worker, but I was, I don't know, like if a kid took something they shouldn't take and they were having a wobble, they would come youth centre and they would just sit with me, because they knew I'm not going to do nothing, and I don't really look like the kind of past I've had. So I've got a level of experience that young people appreciate, and I've never really judged. I mean, in 15 years, I've had to remove one person from a youth service ever. And prior to that was only recently. Prior to that, on 2 occasions, I had to ask someone to leave and come back next week for a conversation. And this was working in like a rowdy area, you know. So yeah, I think with Yaz, it was it was an all boys peer group she was in, and she was just always wanted to learn and work. And what I could always see was she consistently stepped out of her comfort zone, but she did it with a quiet dignity. There was no drama. I knew she didn't really know what she was doing, right? And I knew she was nervous when she did the interview with me, but she just always did it. And so I just kept seeing, like, how far is she going to walk up this path? You know, is she going to self-sabotage? Is she going to implode? Is she... And she just very quietly, as long as you make time to kind of give her the space, she just doesn't quit. She's one of the most resilient, determined people I've ever worked with. And I've trained with like people from the SAS. You know, she's tough. She's tough, man. Yeah.
So, Yasmin, in that time period, what was your... Because obviously you said that you didn't quite understand what it meant to be on Company's House or anything like that, right? So what was the thing that made you think, I'm gonna do this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to take the courage that I have and...
With YCUK in general, or with that specific moment? Or?
Well, that specific moment into saying, I'm gonna go into business now. So as a young person, so because you was what, 19 at the time?
I was 19 when I got put on Company's House. When we founded, I was 17.
Right.
So I think for me, like, I always knew that I was committed to this and I was in business even if I wasn't on the paperwork, because at the time I was 17 and, like I said, I wasn't really clued up on what being on the papers really meant. I had no doubt of, like, my belief in what we were doing, and I was very in line with the mission. But I guess What was the turning point? I'm not actually sure. I think I got pushed so far out of my comfort zone so consistently, which is when you were saying, oh, very articulate. Like Chris said, I was very, very shy, and the kind of youth worker and mentor Chris is he will like nurturingly throw you into the deep end. It's like, there's a lifeline, you know, there's a floaty, you're not gonna drown, but like swim, you know. So there's that, but I think after a certain amount of time, I was just like been swimming for so long. I was like, well, I might as well just accept the fact that I'm a long distance swimmer in a fast flowing rapid right now, and I just got to commit because there's no getting out almost. And
too far in the sea.
Yeah, basically, I can't see land anymore. So, and I can't really say there was a particular turning point. It just felt like, you know, some of the people that we were working with at the time were in such transitional phases in our lives. Like who I was when I was 19 isn't who I am now, and I'm the only person who committed to the business partnership long term. Like, so I see that was like, I'd say, I don't know, it just kind of happened. I really can't give you a specific turning point.
No, it kind of always happens like that. There's nothing that always happens, or there's some kind of adversity or some kind of hardship that kind of just makes you go, fuck this, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of what happened to me when I was younger and I first started business. I was on income support. I went to the job centre and I had to go on income support because I was kicked out of my house and I didn't have nowhere to go. So essentially I was homeless. And technically I had somewhere to go because I had my grandparents' house, but I didn't feel comfortable being there. So because I didn't feel comfortable being there, and I felt like I would be essentially restricted based on religion and culture and all that kind of stuff, I rebelled against doing that. And I would at 17, at 17, just after this, secondary school, I decided to drop out of college and go on income support. And to go on income support, I needed to be in education. And I was like, I fucking don't like education. I was like, I'm not going to college because college was whack. Like, I went to college and I dropped out. Like, I'm not going to bloody do sports science. Like, what the heck? It's not my life. And I always knew that I wanted to do business. But through having to go to an educational institute to get to get my income support, I ended up going to do business studies and business admin in like a small college on Brick Lane. It was like honestly, it was probably one of them centres that bad breed kids go to. It was probably one of them. But it was going there and having to deal with being homeless and not have somewhere to stay or not have somewhere to call home, why I was like, I can't live this life. I've got to do something for myself and take myself out of poverty because I cannot afford to live life like this. And that was my tipping point where I was like, it's either make or break. I'm doing nothing but business. So I don't care if people... So I started... It's actually what I want to ask you. I personally started to represent myself as much older than I was at 17 years old to be taken seriously. So I started dressing in a particular way. I started articulating myself like very clearly and very assertively to ensure that anybody else standing in front of me knew that I meant business. And you don't know that I'm 17 years old. I look like I'm 25. I look like I'm 25. I talk like I'm 25. Yeah, I'm running a business. Like, I'm talking as if I've got this 7-figure business. These times I'm broke pocket on income support, like £48 a week. Like, broke. So did you feel like at 17, 18, 19, as those years were going on, did you feel like you had to present yourself differently, or did you feel comfortable enough based on having someone like Chris in your life to be yourself and still be a young person?
That's a great question. And I would say that, like, having someone like Chris in the business does remove that pressure. I think, because we have got quite a relaxed, authentic culture within the space, and like particularly in the early days, and still now, Chris always made it okay for us to just be as we were. Like when I was 16 going to the Youth Centre stoned, and he could just like point out that I was smoking weed, and I was like, thought I'd be in trouble because he was an adult, but I wasn't, you know, and it just kind of, he just makes everything.
I went and got you cake.
Yeah, he did. Got me cake. He sent me out with Aisha to go get cake. So,
Yeah,
but
they bought their own birthday cake, so weren't that nice?
Yeah, no, it was still, it was still very nice, and I'd like that kind of same attitude is applied across everything. So within like our actual workspace, no. Sometimes in certain places I feel like, or I felt like I had to be as assertive as Chris. I had to control the meetings as much, because particularly in the early days, the young people, like we were a bit like a lot more nervous, a lot more reserved, a lot less experienced. So when it came to speaking to clients, Chris would often lead the conversation and tag us in where he felt like we could speak or we felt comfortable to speak.
Yeah.
But never just like left us completely unsupported. So, you know, I never felt I had to change who I was, because I wasn't really sure of it at that time. But definitely felt a need to be like completely confident in what I was doing and knowing what was going on when I wasn't at all, and still aren't all the time either. And that's, but I guess you get more comfortable being uncomfortable as you go. And that's kind of where I'm at now with it. Yeah, you have days though where it changes. Sometimes I feel like I should be presenting a certain way and I'm not, but I always try and just like take it easy and do it step by step.
Yeah.
I think.
Go.
I think like one of the things that I've always found frustrating, like running a company like this, is like twofold. Like a lot of work goes into negotiating and communicating within the community, and what people might misread is they are used to males like me presenting as in they are assumed positions of power. What they don't understand is how much time I have spent humbly and quietly listening within the community I work with, and when I walk into that room I've been asked to be that figurehead. So I might be sat and we'd had this meeting, so what do we want out of this meeting? We all have a talk, everyone puts their feelings forwards. Now they want to work with young people, but what have they done to make that space accessible to young people? And I'll broaden that out culturally. What have you done? You might want to work with this cool, change-making, diverse thing, but you've got a Zoom call full of suits who don't know how to talk the language, walk the way, and they're used to formality. Then you have a structured, formal call where you name check people to tag them in. That is not easing someone in, that is enforcing your commercial culture onto a community. It's quite often not designed for that. It's not to say people from those communities cannot be corporate, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying you haven't made the effort to make your space accessible. You've just assumed you can bolt on what you do. And I think early on a lot of effort was made into making sure young people were heard, but you've got to wait for people to walk into the space, you know, and that has to be like a two-way thing. You know, if you are used to being in power, generally in any social structure or commercial situation, you have to learn to be quiet when working with others, and that is like the biggest problem I've encountered. Even people coming into our organisation, sometimes they have to learn to sit and be humble and wait for their place and their moment to arrive within that community. That is good community work. You don't land in a country and say, I know this because I'm a man, or I'm from the dominant culture where I'm from, so I have a right to be heard. You have no understanding of the community you're engaging with. I work with these young people every day and I don't understand their worldview, you know, and I could never understand their worldview. They send me, I have to Google emojis sometimes when they message me, right? Sometimes, or some of them when they started communicating in memes, I was still learning emojis and I was getting quite stressed, right? Because the communication's getting more and more abstract, right? And I'm like, I'm just assuming this is a good thing, so I'm like, thumbs up, you know, like, you know, cool, calm, whatever. But it's like it's a challenge, you know. So like with Yaz, sometimes some meetings super assertive, super pushy. The energy's right. We have some great partners we've worked with. Like we did a project with Future City where they've got this incredible woman called Sherry Dobbin, who's really made an effort in meetings to draw out the young people in an empowering way. She had the social intelligence, but she's also perhaps been in a space where she's not always seen as the dominant person in the room, being female. So she pushed and like, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes 100% sense. 100%.
So
it's just time, isn't it? It's like you have to give anybody that you are talking to from any kind of community that's not the same as yours, you have to give them time and space. And given enough time and space, like human beings are actually so intelligent. If given enough time and space, especially young people, they are able to adapt and show up. But you just have to be willing enough, or patient enough to kind of give them that time and space. And it was funny because I think yesterday, or the day before, I was watching. What was I bloody watching? I was watching something about babies. Don't ask. I was watching something about babies on Netflix, and they were saying how intelligent babies are. Right? Like if you leave a baby to its own devices, the baby will do things like a grown person if you just leave a baby to it, as opposed to trying to teach your baby. Leave them to explore, and then they end up picking things up because we are actually very intelligent creatures.
Very
like,
instinctive.
Do you know what I mean?
You don't have to go to school to learn intelligence.
Not at all. Not at all. So so you guys have been in business for the past 3 years. Yeah, solidly. And you have been able to take the creative agency from nothing to over 6 figures. Yeah, with zero funding, even though you guys...
Well, technically I lent some teenagers $5,000, right? I
mean, we're talking about...
That's not much seed funding. They flipped it well, right? It was like... it's a pretty insane moment. I was in a period of my career when my career had just taken off. But as a contractor, it takes a long time for your pipeline to start paying. It takes 6 to 8 months. So I was in the first 18 months of that. So it was kind of like, it was insane how much I was working. Like I was shooting for every major brand out there. Like if you saw a billboard in that period, I was involved in it in some way or form.
And your background is photography?
Photography and I used to do humanitarian search and rescue at the time internationally.
Nice.
That was my kind of core things. And briefly, just when we met, I was still an economist, I think. I don't know. No, I had my shaved. I'd already quit my job, so yeah. So that's what I was doing, and they were blowing. This was not the time for this to happen, if I'm honest. Like my career was popping. I ended up with, on average, 10 contractors a month working through me, but this is from a standstill point. Within 18 months I'm here. I went from being in an office when the BBC used to come in to do an interview and hanging around just to like I don't know what I thought would happen. They go, "Oh, you look interesting. Can we hire you?" Do you know what I mean? Like, but you know what it's like when your dream job is in front of you. You just want to be in the room with it. And I went from that to co-running the biggest humanitarian training exercise in the world with 12,000 people across 14 locations, with the BBC on hold to interview me for the One Show.
Wow.
Right? They didn't end up interviewing me, but I did film the interview of someone else for it. So that's how quickly it can change. And then this happened, and we didn't really know the fire we were lighting. It was just been insane, the growth.
Yeah. So that's so for you, Yasmin. How for you to be able to see you putting in the work, and then being in a founding seat, right? For you to be able to see the level of growth and the income that I'm going to presume you've never actually seen before. Like for 6 figures, for you as a business owner to turn around 6 figures, you're like, oh, how did that feel for you? What was?
I mean, it's just crazy, really, because like we started in a room like smaller than this, you know, and that, I remember we were sitting in a porter cabin in Port Brixton, and we were all like kind of talking about like what this could be, and Chris was like, you know, we could all really make some money off of this. Like, you could actually all end up employed in this, and you could have clients. Like, we could be earning money through this collective that's forming here. I just couldn't. I believed it in like a dream. Like, oh yeah, one day maybe, you know. And then kind of everything we'd spoken about at that time, we'd achieved within 2 years, and like, it's crazy. It's a real testament to having like good people around you, and I think the intergenerational element has been so strong, because without that kind of reassurance, you know, it's hard to actually believe that you're going to get to where you're going to get. And someone who does have a little bit more experience, just reassuring like, this is a possibility. It's like, is it like, really? Okay, let's try it, and you know, fingers crossed, see how it goes. And then it went not surprisingly, it went really well, but I'm surprised at like how quickly so many things came to fruition. Like, it was pretty overwhelming, to be honest.
I can imagine. So in that, now that you're in this position and you've been able to see over 2-3 years how much progression you have made from what you've done, who do you think you have to become to be the next version of you?
If you're enjoying this podcast so far, this is only going to annoy you if you're a hater. Click subscribe, click follow, and drop a quick comment. And if you've done all of those already, then send me a 5-star review, because honestly, it's the only way we survive on the internet. Thank you.
I think I just need to step into myself a bit more. Like, I don't have like posters of anyone in my room. Like, obviously I'm not a 13-year-old anymore, but you know, like, there's no like one idol that I'm looking to and I'm like, I've got to be them. But I know that the more I step into myself, the better things have gone, and the more I've enjoyed my time. Like, you know, I think, like I was saying, the more comfortable you get with being uncomfortable and just owning the fact that I'm shy and awkward and I don't know what I'm doing all the time, and you know, like, the easier you are on yourself and the more you just allow yourself to be you. It's very cliche, people say it all the time, but it's true, and it's not an easy thing to do, because you're not taught how to do it, because no one can teach you to be you. Yeah. And through experiences you kind of learn more about yourself and you become more comfortable with it. And I think the more I do that and just allow myself to sit on the podcast and say, I'm an entrepreneur, like that will be no quotes, all clicks. I think the more I allow myself to do that, that's going to be where I see like the next evolution of myself. To be honest.
Stepping into that power.
Can I throw that question back at you guys, because I think it's a good question. I want to hear your answer too, and you.
Ooh, okay.
I mean,
just like that 180'd on me right there.
Yeah, deflected.
I was so wrapped up in your answer. So I think for me, it's quite an interesting thing. Like, I was a talented creative who had a commercial opportunity that I wouldn't say was creatively satisfactory. My creativity enabled me to, along with someone I was working with, we sort of changed how photography and film was done in that sector. We set a new standard and changed it. I was like the king of what I was doing alongside this other person. But I wouldn't say it allowed my creative voice to flourish, but my voice is in the work regardless. So it's a bit weird, and I was sort of at the point where I had lots of opportunities, and then we started this. So for me, I feel like I've taken a lot of applause under the stage. I've built a lot of things with a lot of communities, and I've never sought any kind of personal recognition, because that's not what it's about. It's about the big picture. It's about genuinely creating change. Yasmin did a very beautiful kind of illustration of me kind of turning my back on my career, because I sensed a real opportunity to change. And it was like I was I was doubling and tripling the turnover of myself. I was earning more than any commercial contractor I knew in what I did at the time. You know, sometimes having 30, 40 shoots a week. It was crazy how busy and booked. And I never marketed. I still never marketed YCUK. I've never actually had to advertise my service. Don't have LinkedIn, nothing. You know, I was kept that busy. So now I feel like I need to step on the stage. I think people who can have an ability to light the path for others, and I think I've shared my talent and my learning from my experiences, and now I need to become something maybe like a figurehead for that, so I can use the privilege and platform I'm able to build myself by having more doors generally open to me, so I can keep opening the side doors on my way. You know, that's what I kind of do, but I don't think I naturally have enough self-interest or ego to do that. So maybe there's a bit of still some more internal work there, you know?
So my last coach said to me, so he was a coach to teach me how to coach. Every coach needs a coach, right?
Yeah.
But he turned around and said to me once, you're doing a disservice to the people that's looking up to you and the people that you can support if you keep your mouth shut. You're actually doing a disservice. You're doing more harm than good by keeping your mouth shut. And that was my pivotal moment where I was like, and basically that was, he said that to me to take away my imposter syndrome. Because I was like, who am I to coach anybody? Right? And this was a couple years ago. And who I had to become then was realize that my imposter syndrome is there and may never go because I'm always going to be leveling up. Right? So I'm always not going to feel ready enough for the next step. But if I don't do it, if I see it more as a disservice and as I'm actually hurting the people in my community, I'm going to take the responsibility to do it.
Yeah, that's
because
very fair.
You see the feeling of not wanting to put yourself out there, and you saying that I don't have enough ego to do that. Why this podcast started, this whole podcast started when I had to get rid of that imposter syndrome. And this whole podcast started because I felt like there was a reason to be on camera and to be in front of a mic and speak, because there was a mission behind it. Before the mission behind it came, and before I realized the mission behind it, I knew I could speak.
Yeah.
I know that I'm confident in front of a camera. I know that I'm articulate. I know that I can support and motivate and inspire.
Absolutely.
I know I can do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a reason to be in the limelight. It wasn't, or I didn't have a big enough reason back then to be in the limelight. But now there's a much bigger vision and there's a much bigger business that I'm building behind this podcast. It's like, no, bitch, you better start talking. Because people need to hear. So the person that I need to become over the next 12 months is so confident in my ability to ask questions, to listen and to learn. I need to become so confident in that I can step in front of any camera, any stage, in front of thousands of people and serve the people that's in front of me. Teach the things that I know, teach the things that I've learned from people like yourself that I have on my podcast, right? And share the messages that you guys give to me.
Yeah.
And I have to do that, because if I don't do that, I'm doing a disservice.
That's fair.
And you're doing exactly the same, brother Christoff.
I would say there's a slight exception.
Okay.
Like for me, it's like turning away from the. I believe I'm working at the point of agitation in society.
Okay.
And I do believe that building a platform for myself is important, but I'm aware that there are plenty of platforms for guys like me in society. And the reason when I say under stage is I'm trying to push the platforms up. I'm not looking to stand in a room alone. I'm looking for collective success. So for me, I've got to build the system. There's no point forging that tip of the spear, that point of agitation ahead any further until the door and gateway I'm creating can remain sustainably open. Like I have definitely fought imposter syndrome, many other things. I've had fights with PTSD and other things in my life. But like, that's the big thing. For me, it's like the what's next is sort of stepping up and becoming that, having like LinkedIn, doing more public speaking, sharing my experiences, but then being able to co-sign and tag the community that's coming behind me. And that's what I feel like, you know, hopefully once the young people buy me out the company or say thanks, we don't need you anymore, that's my next role, you know, is holding other people to leverage what small, or there's people way more privileged than me out there who think that doing a charity fun run is their bit. Like, come on, like, I left home at 15, don't have all my qualifications, do have some degrees, and I did this. You like, man, you got a Porsche, come on, bro. Like,
You could do more.
You could do more, innit? Even just by humbling yourself and going and spending some time with some different people and challenging some of your ignorances, you could do more. You'll become a better human for it too, you know? So it's coming. I hear everything you're saying, I'm not denying it, but I do feel like I've kind of got my hands on the tip of a diamond, and I want to make sure that diamond can kind of get itself out and stand on its own too. And then I know what my next role is, you know, that is them walk strolling ahead, you know, or watching them pass me and trying to catch them, whichever comes first, you know. But it's all about that change, you know.
Do you know what's crazy? I think what you've been able to do and how you've been able to harness and support young people to be the best that they can be. I don't know if it's a skill that you can teach, but I think that's the skill that you need to teach other people that work with young people. How you've been able to elevate them and give them the amount of confidence and the autonomy and the trust to do what they're actually capable of doing. Like, because if I know that if I was, when I was younger, when I was around 19, 20, had I had someone like you to support me or mentor me in certain decisions, I probably would have been a lot further than I am today. And
It's kind of you to say.
Like, but it's true. It's like that space and that time that you've had for people like Yasmin, like, is priceless. And that's why we've had a couple of meetings, Chris, and I've told you that I understand that you feel like you have a different type of privilege and why it's not about you, but I think what you know to do is what other people need to learn.
Thank you.
And that's where your voice has to kind of come in, because I've never met anybody that's been able to give the amount of trust that you've given to young people, and I think that is flipping powerful.
Thank you.
He puts more trust in us than we do in ourselves sometimes, and but that's what exactly, that's what we need, and he'll do it in a way that you won't even realise you're learning something, but he's making it just seem like it's a chat or it's a discussion, or he's doing something next to you and you then start picking something up. But it's all considered. It's all very considered, and like when I met Chris, my view on what I could be changed. I wanted to be a tattoo artist. I thought that was the only way I could earn money doing something creative. I love drawing, Met Chris, and it was an adult who seemed to be doing what he likes, very rare. He was like comfortable being silly and playful, which would be for adults rare as well. And he was so like, with things that I disagreed with in the world, he disagreed with too, but he actually acted and lived his life like against those values or with those values or for those values, you know. And I didn't really, I was like, you don't just have to ignore like certain elements of things you disagree with or just like sulk about them or just leave them the way they are. Like you can actually act build a life on your own terms. And he's just been that figurehead for so many young people. I've seen him blow young people's minds after a 5-minute conversation, and you see their eyes like widen, and he won't say it because he's humble, but he does it like every day to so many people, and he's an incredible man to work with.
I love that.
You're going to make me cry.
No, that is beautiful. And I just love the fact that the dynamics between you both is so true. Like, it's so authentically just, it's just calm. Like, and I know this isn't where it is on a day-to-day basis. I know you probably are cursing each other out on a daily basis when shit hits the fan. But the fact that you're able to just communicate with each other with such a level of like trust in each other, that he does something for you and you do something for him, right? And that is brilliant. I want to ask you both this, two different ways though, right? So, Chris, I'll start with you.
Okay.
If you was to give somebody that works with young people 3 bits of advice to better harness the young person's potential, what would it be?
And I can't use hiring me as one of them.
I mean, hiring me
YCUK.
could be a 4th one.
See, I mean, this is something I can rant about for hours. I think you can tell already, right? So I'd say always speak to the person and be prepared to listen. In any situation I've been, I've worked with some dangerous young people. I'll be honest, talk about it at length, but I've had people try to kill me in my life and whatever, and other things. And when you speak to a human, you get a human back. That's step 1. But if you are not prepared to listen to what comes back, and I don't mean hear, I mean listen, actively listen. Listen to what they do say and listen to what they don't say. The most important element of speaking to someone who maybe doesn't know their voice is the negative communication. You can learn much more about someone. A young person who's agitating and disrupting a group wants attention, needs nurture. This is negative communication. They are not trouble, they are not disruptive, they are neglected. You know, example 1, education system should have learned that 20 years ago. I learned that in 6 months in a youth centre. You know?
Let's not start on the education system.
Yeah, they're next on the list. So number 1, I would say it's about actively listening and really looking at how they're communicating with you on a deep level. I think with that, if you are perceptive, you have to have a respect for how much they let you in. Just because you can sense trauma in someone doesn't give you the right to dig. You know, I think that's really, really important. You can tell anyone who's travelled emotionally or whatever in life, you tell when you meet someone. Same as when you're young, you can tell someone who smokes and someone who can't, right? They got the vibe, you know. It's the same with trauma. Like, so I think that's really important, how you listen and how you ask. I think like as an adult, you get overly confident in what you know. You know, you confirm the myths that you create about your own reality. You build these ridiculous narratives that form your opinions, and the sole purpose of an opinion is to be changed, right? It's what you know until you know something more.
Yeah.
And don't go in there thinking, I'm going to tell you how I live my life so it's relevant to you. Your existence is nothing compared to that person's existence. So again, don't assume you know anything. You may know things that have helped you. You may know systems that work. You might know some great exercises and workshops, but don't like make any like assumptions about like understanding people. You have to really open yourself to the person in front of you, because everyone is different. And I think it kind of feels like the first one, but said in a different way, but it's calm. And I think the third thing is like, don't really go into that space if you're still really, really heavily working through your shit, because they'll sense it. If you are telling your story in youth centres as a form of catharsis for yourself, that is about you. and you are taking community space and budget to heal yourself. And I don't really run with that. There are people who use their story very, very effectively. I'm not calling out anyone, but there is definitely a line with that kind of work. So I think, like, go in there and be authentic and be prepared to be vulnerable. Teenagers especially are like hair trigger bullshit detectors. You know, they smell it, and the moment they don't trust your integrity, right? There might be kids that will cuss me out. There might be young people who don't. I mean, I'd like to think there's not too many, but there might be. But the one thing no one could ever say was I was never 100. I was never real with them. I was never honest. When Yasmin asked me about masculinity, gender, I was open. Sometimes you have to, like, there has to be safe boundary on that, but there are times to be really open. Like, if it is my opinion on a subject that's my lived experience versus the guy who might be selling you something, I know who I'd rather a young person spoke to, you know? That's reality. So I think being authentic and secure in your identity and your why in that room is really important. And a part of that, like, drop the entitlement. You have no entitlement to be heard. You have no entitlement for reciprocation. You have no entitlement for love, nurture. That you're not even entitled for that kid to change. You could work 2 years on a young person and they don't get nowhere. That's the damn job, you know. And that is okay, because you're doing it because you believe in it. You're not doing it, you know, because you need some kind of validation or reward of change. You've worked, and I've worked with a couple of really bleak generations. Done the stabbings, done the shootings. But you know what? There's always that kid. You do turn around. And it might not be now, and maybe they are lost, but maybe when they raise their kids, those sentences you give them, those little seeds of hope you put in them, when they are ready to receive them, they will grow.
Yeah.
You know, because people aren't always ready to receive knowledge. You have to be really, in my life, I was a dickhead at their age. Do you know what I mean? Like, a complete, couldn't tell me nothing. I was your classic kind of help refusing complainer. Didn't want help from nobody, but I was like hard done by. You know, like self-destructive as hell. But the lessons I learned from elders, the good ones I had around me, I still use to this day. You know.
Nice. That is some good bits of advice. And a line that just a minute ago, what came across my mind was, the teacher always appears when the student's ready.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, they always appear when the student is ready. But you have to be a young person, an older person, whoever you are. You just have to be in a receiving mindset. And as soon as you are in that receiving mindset, the teacher comes. Some kind, and the teacher won't come in a form of a person. Maybe it might come in a form of a situation or whatever it is. But you always learn the lesson when you're ready. Something
I've definitely learned is you will learn the lesson regardless. I can tell you're running reckless. You know, I can tell you certain life choices. You learn the lesson regardless. Now, I don't need to be right. What I need to be is still a part of your life when that lesson comes. So it might not be now, but I've had young people disappear on me for 4 years, and I found out something terrible's happened in their family. All their boys are calling me, you've got to find so-and-so, rare. That is the value of the investment of time, that when they need someone, you're there. You're there with no entitlement, open, humility, and ready to listen. You know, then if they want advice, give it. If they don't want advice, just be kind, do them no harm, be authentic. You know, if they need to be told they're a dickhead, tell them they're a dickhead. They know they're a dickhead. Everyone knows when they're taking liberties, you know. And if they need to be told they're a beautiful person, they need to learn to, they need to see themselves how you see them, then tell them that. Tell them the truth, because that stuff is like important. Yeah. Especially, we don't give enough compliments in this world.
Honestly, everyone feels sideways trying to give a compliment.
We do it. It's one of the things we do regularly at the company. Is we, after workshops or exercises and debriefs, anyone got a compliment? I don't get that many. Yeah, nice hairline. You know. So Yasmin, the question for you is: if you was to give
3 bits of advice for a young person starting a business, what would it be?
Seek information through, like, I'd say through experience first. For me, like, I think for any entrepreneur, like, trying new things, asking questions to people, putting yourself in uncomfortable spaces, that's gonna teach you more than any, like, YouTube guru or, like, thing you found online. Like, it's just, you can't, like, you can only experience, and that is probably the best teacher. Well, for me, it definitely is. So that would be my first piece of advice. Second would be around, to be honest, probably around organisation. I say that something that lots of entrepreneurs struggle with, particularly creative people. Not an actually organised person. I hate it. I hate the functionality and detail and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Give me the vision, not the detail.
Yeah, exactly. But when you are setting
that's
up,
why I have my production.
yeah, exactly. That's why teams are important, because you get different tools in one box. But like, regardless if it's your natural thing or not, if you're steering the ship, you should know where things are. You should know what you need to have your eye on. You should be on top of, like, the little details, even if you don't know all of them to a in-depth level. You should be, like, aware of the full 360 of what's going on. And particularly when you're young, like, you're kind of spoon-fed at school. Again, not bringing up school too much, but it doesn't really teach you, like, personal organisation on a level you might need to set up a business. And then my counter, like, kind of arguing what I've just said, is, like, to not put too much pressure on yourself to be the best and to have it all figured out. Like, yeah, you should aim to be organised, but if you don't know everything and you forget that thing and that slipped out of your mind, it's okay, because again, it's an experience and you've learned, and now you know that you need to write things down and you need to put it in your calendar, and you start doing that more regularly. And it's that balance of striving to be where you want to be and be ambitious, but again, be kind enough to yourself that when imposter syndrome hits or whatever is blocking you from taking that step forwards, that you're just like, it's okay, I'm new to this, we're gonna figure it out, and just take a step in a different direction. That's it.
That was really good advice. I'd taken the time to know. That's not even that. To be fair, the advice that you've just given isn't for any. It's not just for young people. That is for just people in general. Because it's facts. But now you've actually got a young person telling you this shit. So, like, if you don't know it, then there's something wrong.
I'm sorry. This generation's coming.
They got all the take. But no, honestly, what you just said is paramount. It is understanding that you are just new to this, and it's okay. And that mess up, in quotation marks, I'll put mess up. That mess up doesn't have to be your downfall. Like, it's just a lesson. And understanding that it's just a lesson allows you to say, okay, cool, what did I learn from that lesson? I fucked up here. Okay, no problem. Next time round, I'm gonna do this.
Exactly.
It's like your narrative around these things, right? With young people, a lot of my work is deprogramming them from education. Fear of failure, because we are all assessed on league tables, exams, all this nonsense that's going to define you, that only suits one learning style, doesn't measure any aptitude or intelligence. It just suits a certain type of person. Like, getting comfortable with failure and then managing your internal narrative from I'm struggling to I'm learning. I'm growing every time. I mean, this I can't lie, this is co-building a company where none of us know what we're doing in a way no one else has done it, while trying to be humanist and always making that ethical call with emotional consideration is exhausting, and we get our ass handed to us all the time. The only reason it has succeeded is because we just get back up and go, that was a bit shit, right?
Yeah.
We go again, and when you don't know what to do, it's like when you're in gym. If you can do gym, or you can play a shoot 'em up, you can succeed in life. Because in a shoot 'em up, what happens? You come around the corner, headshot, you're done. So you know that guy's on the roof, right? So next time, come around the corner, you get the guy on the roof. Boom, next guy, the guy in the trash can, he gets you with a shotgun. Okay, you now know he's there, and that's all I've ever found the pattern of success is getting had up, and reflecting, and re-going. It's as simple. The learning cycle isn't deep. The growth cycle isn't deep. People call it Kaizen, they call it all these other things. It is being repeated through history, but it's like, decide, commit, succeed. It's just don't underestimate that second word, innit?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have we failed and then we're like re-strategizing? It feels like we fail too much, but we don't. But it feels like we do.
Yeah, I think we failed a lot, but that decide, commit, succeed phrase is something that you said to me quite early on, and it stuck with me ever since. And it's like taking something that's really complex, and what you were saying about narratives that people build up in their heads, it's like it's never really as complicated as you think it is. Things are designed to look more complicated than they are to be inaccessible in the first place. So it's all really like, you need to find commonalities, you need to simplify them through whatever method works for you. And once you find those systems, those little mantras, the right people around you, like, you can decide to achieve something, you commit to doing it, and eventually you'll succeed. The time from committing and succeeding may vary, but it will happen, you know. And it's that simpler mentality, and we take that. You taught that to me, and we taught it to
lots of young people. Like, the narrative thing is so like important.
Yeah, we would just make up stories.
Like, how many times have you been in a situation with your friend? I'll say my boy. You know, he's like broken up with his girl. He's in pieces. Rare. Complex story. It's hugely intricate narrative, and I give him a hug, and he feels better. So you built this huge, elaborate, complex thing. But what reassured you in that moment? The most basic need, just a positive, nurturing human interaction. And we do the same with all things. Our entire existence as a society is based on our belief in myths.
Yeah.
So we build myth upon myth upon myth, and we do it to ourselves. We are storytellers. That's what's allowed us to kind of evolve away from maybe a more naturalistic existence. The story of ethics, the story of money, the story of gender, of identity, they're all just myths. They don't exist. They're story of nations. There wasn't French dinosaurs. Do you know what I mean? I just read the T-Rex. You know, this did not happen. It's like this was not a thing. These are myths. You know, there wasn't.
That was great. Yeah,
this was not a thing. Like, this is, and unfortunately, we have not fully yet learned how to use our brains to their potential. So we cannot control the storytelling. So we build these stories that undermine us, you know, that define us. And I think it's important. Like this, the reason I love that mantra is it's so simple. You know, that my favourite writers take absolutely complex ideas and they boil them down to a sentence. You know, that is. It's like, I can't remember who it is, but there's a great writer who said, like, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. Right, because it's that art of getting to the so what of a situation. You know?
I've heard that. I actually heard that quite recently, and I can't remember who it was. But yeah, the more time you have to think about it, the more simpler you can make it.
Yeah.
You just have to be given the space.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to be given the space. Oh my gosh. Well, do you guys have any last questions? Because I would love to carry on this conversation, honestly, but I like to keep these episodes to at least under an hour and a half, so people can. But I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm pretty sure everybody else listening will. But I think there's just so much to unpack. There's so much more to kind of unpack and kind of talk about, and I'd love to get you guys back on here.
We're down.
To just see your progress in the next year and see what amazing things you've been able to do. I mean, our conversations behind the scenes will always kind of carry on because, as I said, what you guys are doing is something that I am heavily invested in and want to be able to support in any which way that I can.
Thank you.
And yeah, anything that the Promisingpreneur can do, anything that CREATALAND can do in in conjunction with you guys, I'm all for it.
We're here
Thank
for it
you.
too.
So we
I
love
think
what you guys do too.
Thank you.
there's one last thing we can mention. Can we do a little plug?
Of course
Can we
you
do a
can,
small plug?
please.
Yeah, go on.
So I'm gonna keep it brief because clearly I can waffle. You lot seen this, right? YCUK has never marketed its service, not once. If I could give a metaphor for the process of building this company, you know, when you see those pictures and there's like one guy and there's like all them people holding back who are ready, that's how this has felt. We did not know the fire we were lighting. So we sort of set a goal, and we are going to market and fundraise our services for the first time ever from September. We're a little bit frightened of the increased demand that we're going to face, but we need to make sure that this is here sustainably for the next 10 to 30 years. We are looking to build a subculture within the existing commercial sector that has kind of based on the mafia, if I'm honest, of spreading a culture within a culture, but a culture of hope, culture of change, a culture of acceptance and nurture, you know, whilst being creatively and professionally excellent.
Yeah.
Because this is still a capitalist system. We might all have socialist values or liberal values, but the system's predictable, so we are just subverting it. You know, we're using the system to power us. So that's one thing. So we're going to be launching the campaign. Anyone who wants to support, who wants to book, who wants to learn from us, who wants to contribute, we have sort of got to the limit of where we can grow this thing without sort of having some investment's the wrong word. We will never be funding dependent, and I'll commit on the podcast. I'm going to say double. I was going to say triple. We will double any donation we get input or any support or grant money. I do not believe in charities. I do not believe in businesses. I believe social enterprise is the future of an effective society. But that campaign's like coming. So please, at Young Creators UK, come follow, come support. And do you have anything to say?
No, you said it all. To be honest, you said it all. At Young Creators UK.
Big up.
Hit us up, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I've heard everything that you've said. This is much bigger. This is about bringing up our next generations. And bringing up our next generation is bringing up the next economy, is bringing up the next everything. Like, our next Prime Minister is currently a young person.
Mm-hmm.
Our next world leaders are currently young people.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't take the time to nurture them,
Mm.
we're going to have a fucking shit future.
Mm-hmm.
To say the bloody least, right? So the urgency of that support, and my biggest thing is creative people and creative minds have so much more to offer if taken the time to nurture.
That's a beautiful point, yeah.
Right? And that's what YCUK is doing. You are nurturing creative minds, nurturing young creative minds to be the next world leaders, and for us to have a better society, for us to be more inclusive, for us to be more agile as a society and as an economy, we need to be able to support what you're doing. And it's just that simple. So
you're definitely coming on the campaign. Thank you so much for saying that.
No, it's thank me, because it's what I believe. It's what my mission is also. That's why I said I'm so invested in what you guys are doing. I'm so happy that I was able to meet you guys. And yeah, like, the parents out there, the wannabe parents out there that's gonna have their children, that's bringing up their children currently in this day and age. Everyone is scared about what the future is gonna bring and what the future holds, but no one's willing to invest in that future. So how about we take the time to invest in our young people, because it means that our future would be better. That's it.
It's time. It's time to do that.
It's time.
Yeah, just give young people access to the right mentality, all the stuff we're not taught in school. and they'll work it out.
Privileged information.
Yes, exactly.
Privileged information. That is legitimately the reason why I'm on this earth, is to share privileged information. And actually this podcast is exactly about that. It's about to share privileged information that people gain through experiences and people gain through learning themselves. And because you can learn in all different ways, right? But this podcast is to be able to share that privileged information to those that otherwise wouldn't see it or seek it. Right? This is the Promisingpreneur is now in your face, right?
Yeah,
it's
boy.
in your face.
Yeah.
So if you don't hear this information,
Get out.
right there, right there. Massive thank you, Yasmin and Christoff, for coming down here and having a wonderful conversation with me. Definitely will be inviting you back to see exactly what the progress has been. Everybody is most definitely going to be flocking towards YCUK after this, I promise you that.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, huge love to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you
sharing
so
your
much.
platform. We love what you do, and we can be happy to be in there having this chat.
Thank you.
You was just listening to the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat, and thank you so much for listening all the way through. Don't forget to click subscribe and share to at least one person, because that's the only thing that's going to fuel us to carry on.